Hello again, Steve here, and I had some thoughts today that went something to do with this book that I'm reading now. It's called The Philosophy of Nietzsche, and I really quite enjoy it for his intellectual honesty, his vulnerability, and his opening up to what he thinks and how he sees things as important. And so I've been reading that for a bit, and then this morning I went out for a run because I'm doing my best to kind of get back in shape. I got out of shape to a great extent over a while, and I did my first 23 kilometers on the trails running, ran the whole thing in a fair bit of heat. That's a bit of a stress too, about 30 degrees, maybe not quite 30 degrees, and I had boots on, which I deliberately did to challenge myself. And it was a bit of a tough run, but what I find is that when I'm out challenging myself like that, physically, things start to come to me, ideas start to come to me, and I start to put things together. For example, I made a note from Nietzsche's book here, or the book about Nietzsche, and he said essentially, it's not completely a direct quote, but it's what I remember, a sedentary life is the real sin against the Holy Spirit. I thought that was an interesting thought to unpack because, of course, Nietzsche was famous for saying, God is dead. But the concept of the Holy Spirit, if one looks at it from a philosophical level, I'm supposing, and I'm supposed he'll come up with it later, is actually a very practical one, because we look into what the origin of what a spirit is, the breath of life, and holy means complete, right? So the whole aspect of life, to really live, is to live Holy Spirit, right? And so a sedentary life is the real sin against the living of life that can be. And while I was out running, I thought, because I like to go to origins, I like to look at things where they begin as much as possible, because if we can get deep down, just like if we're going to build a nice house, we got to be honest with what we're putting in the foundation, right? Because everything else can be based on that. So if you think about how it is that we come into the life to breathe air, to breathe this spiritual air, right? As babies, what happens as soon as we're born? If we are to be healthy, holy, which is another synonym, by the way, holy and healthy, complete. If we are to be healthy, what everybody wants to hear is a cry. And a baby's cry is not just a whimper of sadness or whatever. I mean, it's an all-out, the healthier the baby, the more all-out, face goes red, wrinkles up, and the whole body is going, the arms start to go and the legs start moving around. That's a healthy baby, right? That's it in its Holy Spirit of situation right at that point. So what is that? What is all that stuff? That is activity. That is physical activity. It's giving it its all expression of life right then and there. And then what does the baby want straight away after that, very soon after that? It wants nutrition, right? And Nietzsche talks about that too, about how, it really starts with the digestive system. He talks about sedentary life, so activity, and then, because after all, if we think about it, our activity leads to our hunger, right? Our hunger for nutrition. And so he talks about the importance, the honesty, the spiritual importance, or not so much spiritual importance, but the intellectual honesty, if we are to truly live as complete as we can, to the concern or the attention to the best of food that is best for us. However we can figure out what's the best for us in terms of nutrition. And if we think about it in terms of a newborn baby, ideally what food is given to that baby is mother's breast milk. There's been a time in history when we were told that, you don't have to give mother's milk and so on, and there's some cases where mothers are not able to lactate or whatever. But ideally, mother's milk, that we're talking about tens of hundreds of thousands of years of history, of process of development of the perfect food for a baby, which is mother's milk, the perfect balance. So the baby is active. The baby then eats the best food that it can eat, or consumes it. And then what does the baby do? The baby takes a dump, right? Takes a poop, it takes a pee usually. So really, if we really think about it in terms of the foundation for our physiology, for our mentality, for our everything, if we are to consider the foundation of a house that we're building, we're going to build the best foundation to start with, right? Nice and level, strong, etc. Then we're going to put some effort into that. And I would say to build the rest of our lives, we have to take care of those essentials. And we can learn a lot from the baby. And, Nietzsche wasn't talking about baby, but I put those together because it kind of makes sense, right? If we look at, because the baby doesn't have anything else at that time. It's got no agreements and jobs to go to and so on. It's just doing the basics. But what is it doing in the basics? And are we really fundamentally much different than a baby? I don't think so. But the baby's active, remains active, and in fact you can see that a baby that is not active, that is a baby that is in trouble, right? And it doesn't have its Holy Spirit. It doesn't have its complete health, or as complete as it could be. But that baby's active, that baby eats or consumes the best food for it, that baby poops and that baby pees. And all of those are a measure of health, physical health, which then is the foundation for our lives as individuals here. So what's important? Maybe that's the real trinity of our individual health, is our activity, our nutrition, and our excrement. And we have to mind it all, to be aware of it all, right? I mean, there's a measure of health in our activity. There's a measure of health in our nutrition. There's a measure of health in what comes out of us when we go to the bathroom or doesn't come out of us, right? Because indigestion, constipation, all that sort of stuff is telling us something. Telling us that stuff's not. What we're doing is, something's off with what we're doing. We are not in complete connection with that aspect of Holy Spirit. This may sound rather odd, the way I'm rambling on here, but I wanted to put it forward because there's thoughts that came to me. And I just want to share things ideas on improving the quality of our lives. And I think that foundation and the intellectual honesty of trying to get to the deepest fundamental of importance in our lives helps us with our self-knowledge, helps us with our ability to move through life more effectively, and therefore helps us to be able to then do the things that we want to do, the other things that we want to do. Because if we are fundamentally healthy, physically, our mind's going to work better. We're going to have better cognition, better ability to communicate with people, better able to help people, better able to finish our projects, all of these sorts of things. So if you have any comments or suggestions or anything like that, or if you want to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to what I say, shared here today rather, feel free to do so, and please do so. That helps, I guess, get the word out somehow. Hope this is valuable. Steve here again. Nice chatting. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.